Hello and welcome to MTG Deck Tech. Today we're going to discuss the new bans we had in Standard and also how the format is going to change, how the meta is going to shift. So in case you haven't heard yet, Oko, among others, was banned. There was also a ban of Veil of Summer and also of Once Upon a Time. So 3 bans for important green cards, which means green will probably lose some steam in the format. But what exactly is going to take its place? That's what I want to discuss in this video. So this is a purely theoretical video. I'm not going to have any gameplay here, so if you're looking for that, you'll have to wait. But let's just start by talking about Oko. Oko was too strong in the format because he had so many things he could do. He could make food tokens. He could turn stuff into elks. That's basically the ability that was the most impactful, I think. Turning all the good stuff of your opponents into elk was just too powerful for the format. And of course, you could also exchange stuff for your food tokens, for example. So many of the cards that were bad with Oko in the format are going to be much better. For example, if you have cards like Torbran, that has a very strong static ability that you will need, otherwise Torbran is pretty useless. Of course, turning Torbran into an elk just made him useless, and you could do that every turn to such a card with Oko. So maybe if your opponent will have less life gain because they won't be able to make food every turn, stuff like Mono Red Burn, Mono Red Cavalcade, red aggro decks in general are going to be a bit stronger, maybe much stronger. We have to see how the other decks in the format shift out, but I think red will get its power back. Especially because Oko has such a high loyalty, you could make him into a 6 loyalty planeswalker on the first turn, which means that most red burn spells couldn't do anything against Oko. So this is another reason why Oko was so bad for red decks and why we haven't seen that many red aggro decks be very successful, at least in best of threes. And I think that's gonna change. I'm not sure how great the red decks will be. There are some great other aggro decks, which I will talk to you about in a second. But yeah, we will see how this turns out. So one deck I have been working on was Boros Knights, which I have played a bit in ranked. Also played it in a small tournament yesterday, and this deck was already good against Oko. So even though they had the life gain, all these Oko decks, they couldn't really hold their water with these Boros Knights decks. So I have like very small knights, Venerable Knight, Fervent Champion, Weaselback Redcap, also stuff like a Worthy Knight that can make you tokens, and yeah, the Embercleave as the most important card to really get a lot of power onto the battlefield. Venerated Loxodon also helps, but I'm going to do a greater deck tech when I know if this deck is going to pan out or something. I might have to change stuff. I might have to put out a Cosmotropic Wave out of the sideboard and make something else in its place. Not sure about that yet. So until I have figured out how this deck is going to slot, I'm not going to make a deep dive on it. So another card that's going to be very powerful, which might bring me to switch from Boros Knights to Mardu Knights again. Although I do like the ability to play Light Up the Stage in this Boros Knight deck, because you have great access to red mana that you don't have in the Mardu Knights decks, because you will rely more on tournament grounds and stuff like that. But we will see. And Rotting Regisaur is definitely a card that can profit from Embercleave and being able to swing in for a lot of power. That's why many people are playing them in Mardu Knights decks. You can also, of course, play it in the Mono Black aggro deck or Rakdos aggro or whatever you want to do. Rotting Regisaur is just a very strong card. And now it can't be turned into an elk. So stuff like Rotting Regisaur that has a lot of power and a lot of toughness will definitely benefit from Oko being out of the format. Also, cards with many abilities that are useful, for example, the Spawn of Mayhem or Rankle, the Master of Pranks, which has a lot of effects that can happen after it attacks. Of course, it will be much better if it can't be turned into an elk. So mono black could be a thing again. I'm not going to try it out because, or I'm not going to try it out yet because I'm top 700 at the moment in ranked, and I want to stay there. So I'm not going to test around with many more decks. I'm just going to fine tune my Boros Knights, and if that doesn't work out, I might go back to black or something, or make a Simic Flash deck or anything else. We will see about that. But yeah, mono black could definitely be something you could look into. I have already made a few videos on mono black, so if you want to watch them, go ahead. They are still very relevant, I think. Even more relevant now that Oko is out of the format, I think. Also because, yeah, live game is not great against any aggro deck. And since, yeah, mono black is an aggro-ish deck, a bit of mid-range, yeah, you will have a lot more success, I think. Also, the Sacrifice deck. This is the deck that I'm really worried about because it could get really strong. Especially the Rakdos Sacrifice deck, because you don't not only have Witch's Oven, but you also have Mayhem Devil. Those are two cards that could be made almost useless by Oko. Witch's Oven couldn't sack the cat anymore, the Cauldron Familiar, and you couldn't get it back and stuff like that because it was an elk. Mayhem Devil couldn't have its sacrifice deal 1 damage effect because it got turned into an elk. And yeah, stuff like that is going to be very difficult to play against, I think, and it's very, very good in the format that is to come. I'm not sure what is better, if you go Rakdos Sacrifice, or you might even go Junt Sacrifice with the Corvold. As I said, I am going to try out to make a Sultai Sacrifice still work without Oko. I think that's still a possibility. You just have to find other cards to get you card advantage. And this is even more the case because Once Upon a Time got also banned today. We have talked a lot about Once Upon a Time. It's a very impactful spell if you draw it in turn 1, because you can just get a free card of your choice. That is a land card or a creature card. And yeah, even if you don't get it in turn 1, you still have a very nice card draw. So Once Upon a Time got banned, which is, I think, a very good decision to make the game more stronger for other colors, because other colors just don't have free spells in this format right now. And yeah, green will have to rely on other draw engines. For example, Growth Spiral or Opt if you play blue as well. And yeah, stuff like that will have to have more impact in the current green meta. Although I'm not sure where green is going to go. I could also see some mono green stuff being viable again, or Gruul, which I will come to later, could be very nice. So you have still a lot of options with green. It's just not that overpowered as it was before. Of course, I talked about the Simic Flash, which will be amazing, which I'm going to talk about. Talking about Veil of Summer. Because Veil of Summer was basically the card that destroyed any counterspell based deck. For example, Azorius Aggro that had a lot of those Dovin's Vetoes, or not exactly Dovin's Veto, but well, even Dovin's Veto. It would even destroy Dovin's Veto, so it's a very, very powerful spell in green, just to have any counters be basically worthless against you. Also, Simic Flash is a deck that can work very well now, because you have stuff like Quench that could be countered by the Veil of Summer, Sinister Sabotage, or stuff like that. You could even go mono blue. I've seen a lot of mono blue in the last few days, more than I would have expected. But mono blue has still got some nice cards with Brazen Borer coming into the format and stuff like that. You can also play the Cutthroat in mono blue. I've seen that, and yeah, you have a lot of options in mono blue. So that might be a deck that could come back into the meta a bit. I don't think it's going to be S tier, but I think it could be in the A or B tier of definitely playable decks. Maybe it will rank even higher. I'm not sure, but yeah, mono blue is definitely going to have some kind of comeback. Of course, when you have counterspells in the matchup, you'll need other cards to work against the counterspells. For example, Shifting Ceratops is just a spell that can't be countered and has protection from blue, so it automatically kills the mono blue deck. It almost certainly kills the Simic Flash deck, and it's just a very nice way to counter those type of strategies. You can also expect Gruul to have a comeback because of cards like Domri that give your creature spells the ability not to be countered anymore. You can also say the same thing for Rhythm of the Wild. So Gruul aggro might have a little bit of a combat, especially since Oko is also banned. Your opponent won't have as much life available to them, not as much life gain. And I think Gruul is going to have a very nice stand. I mean, it also already won the Mythic Championship with Javier Dominguez. So yeah, if you want to check that out, you Google Javier Dominguez's deck. I think it's going to be very good in post Veil of Summer, post Oko format. Of course, you also have Mystical Dispute that is going to rise in popularity because the best way to get rid of a counterspell, except for Dovin's Veto, is to counter it yourself. And this is stuff that counters your opponent's counterspell for only 1 blue mana, because counterspells in this format are always blue. And yeah, that will help you against those types of decks. So something you need to have in your sideboard if you play Simic or other blue decks that will work in this format again. Also, of course, our old friend Teferi Time Raveler, 3 mana Teferi that can basically destroy your whole opponent's counter strategy, because if it's on the field, they can only cast Sorcery Speed and will not be able to counter anything. So I'm expecting Teferi to have a big comeback here again, in decks like Band, for example, or in Azorius Control and stuff like that. So Teferi will definitely be a card you have to watch out for. Yet your opponents are much more likely to play, so we'll have to see how that shakes out. I think we will have a lot of Simic Flash and Teferi decks in the first few days, and yeah, somehow we have to find out what will work better. I'm leaning towards Simic Flash more than like Band stuff, because I think you still need to get, you only have the 1 card with Teferi as Band, you don't have Veil of Summer, and that will really help the counterspell based decks, Azorius Control and Simic Flash and Mono Blue. Also cards like Murderous Rider, so all the adventure cards basically are going to lose in value, because counterspells are going to be more easy to play and will be played more. And this will mean that sometimes your opponent will counter the instant or the sorcery half of the adventure card, and you will lose the creature because it won't go into exile anymore, it goes into the graveyard. So you really have to watch out. I think there will be adventure decks that are very good. For example, Black-Green seem to be good in tournaments that already banned the Oko, but they didn't. These tournaments, I think, didn't plan on banning Veil of Summer. So I think the adventure cards will lose some of their value. Cards like Murderous Rider will still be great cards, of course, because it's just so versatile. And but you have to watch out a bit more. If you rely too much on these adventure cards, they can really be hurt by those types of decks. So those are my main predictions I'm going to have for the metagame. It's just a quick overview on what I think is going to happen. I'm definitely gonna update you with some deck tech if my Boros Knights works out. And if not, I'm going to update you with another deck I'm going to build at some point. And we'll also have Historic rollout soon officially, which is also a very exciting stuff. And it's all around just an exciting time to be a Magic player and to play Magic Arena. So I hope you still enjoy this content. I hope you watch this channel some more. And I'm always happy for some feedback and stuff like that if you have any. So like this video, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. And thank you for watching. This was MTG Deck Tech with banned and restricted announcements.